I married the perfect man. Daniel was kind, thoughtful, steady. The kind of person you feel safe with almost instantly. We met on a rainy afternoon when I slipped on the subway steps and he caught me before I hit the pavement. It sounds cliché, but that's how it started. One clumsy moment, one soft smile, and then a whirlwind romance that felt like it came out of a movie. We dated for just over a year before he proposed during a quiet weekend getaway in Vermont. It wasn't extravagant or flashy, but it was us, simple, honest, and full of love. Our wedding was small, just close family and a few friends. I didn't have a huge network, and Daniel said most of his were scattered across the country or out of touch. I never questioned it. He said he'd had a rough upbringing and didn't keep many people close. It made sense. For our honeymoon, we flew to Santorini. It was supposed to be 7 days of beaches, wine, and finally getting to just be together after months of stressful planning. The first 2 days were everything I dreamed of. On the third morning, I woke up alone. At first, I figured he'd gone out for breakfast or maybe a walk, but after an hour passed, I started calling his phone. Straight to voicemail. I texted him. No reply. I waited. I paced the hotel room. I checked the breakfast buffet. Downstairs. I asked the front desk. Nothing. By lunchtime, I was spiraling. The front desk staff offered to check security footage. I wasn't even thinking that dramatically yet. I just wanted to know he hadn't fallen or gotten lost. They pulled up footage from that morning, and that's when I felt the first real chill. There was nothing. No sign of him leaving the hotel. Not from the front doors, not from the back exit, not even in the hallway outside our room. He was just gone. I called the local police. They filed a report but weren't overly concerned. Husbands disappear for a few hours all the time, they said. Maybe he needed space, but this wasn't like Daniel. Not even close. The next day, I called the U.S. Embassy. They told me to file a missing persons report and connect with his family. That's when things started getting really strange. I called the number Daniel had saved in his phone under Mom. It went straight to a disconnected tone. Same with the contact labeled Work. Emails bounced back. I thought, okay, maybe there's a mistake. Maybe he changed phones recently, or these are old contacts. So I did something I probably should have done months ago. I tried to find him online. Nothing. No LinkedIn. No Facebook. No alumni pages. The company he said he worked for? No record of. An employee named Daniel Myers? No digital footprint. No public records. Not even a high school photo in an online yearbook. It was like my husband didn't exist, and the more I searched, the more it looked like he never had. Back in our hotel room, I tore through Daniel's suitcase like a madwoman. I needed something, anything that would tell me who he really was. But that's the thing. There wasn't much to tear through. His suitcase was half empty. No passport, no wallet, no ID. Just a few shirts, a toothbrush, a paperback novel I'd never seen him read, and a cologne bottle that still had the department store security tag on it. I stared at that for a long time. He'd brought a bottle of cologne with the tag still on. It was all a prop. I went back to the front desk, begged them to review the security footage again, this time from the day we arrived. I needed proof that Daniel had even been with me. The concierge hesitated, probably thinking I was having a breakdown, but they agreed. Together, we watched the grainy black and white footage from 2 days ago. I saw myself walking through the lobby, wheeling my suitcase behind me. Alone. I froze. No, that's not right. He was right next to me. The clerk tilted his head. You checked in alone. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera roll. Every photo I had from the trip, on the plane, at dinner, standing on the cliffside, Daniel wasn't in a single one. I swear he had been. I remembered him taking selfies of us, laughing, making faces, kissing me in front of the blue domes of Oyagon. I looked through the photos from our wedding. He was there, arm around me, smiling. I scrolled through the tagged photos from our friends, the ones from the reception, the cake cutting, the first dance. He was missing from those too. Literally missing. In one photo, I was clearly dancing with someone, and my arms wrapped around an invisible person. My smile tilted toward nothing. People had congratulated us, right? I remembered the toasts, the hugs, the way my dad got choked up. That happened. But when I started reaching out to guests, the replies were off. It was such a beautiful ceremony. You looked amazing. The venue was gorgeous. Sorry I didn't meet your guy. He kept disappearing. Over and over, I heard the same thing. We were there for you, but we don't really remember him. Even my maid of honor, Jess, sounded hesitant when I pushed. I remember standing next to you, and I remember you were so happy. But when I try to picture him, it's just kind of blank. I wanted to scream. The man I married was disappearing, not just from my life, but from my memories, from the world. Back home, I tried to retrace everything. I went to the coffee shop where we had our first date. The barista had no idea who I was talking about. I called the restaurant where he proposed. Sorry, miss, we don't have any record of a reservation under that name. I dug out our marriage certificate. It was there. My name. His name. The date. But the signature next to. Mine? It didn't match his handwriting. I went to the courthouse. They pulled up the file and frowned. Ma'am, this license is only partially completed. It was never fully submitted. Legally, there's no record of this marriage being finalized. I walked out in a daze. I had a ring. I had memories. I had love. But I was starting to realize something chilling. I might have never had a husband. At this point, I didn't know what was worse. The idea that I'd been scammed, or that I was losing my mind. I went to a therapist. I told her everything. The wedding. The honeymoon. The photos that disappeared. The people who should have remembered Daniel but didn't. She didn't laugh. She didn't call me delusional. She leaned forward and asked, "Have you ever heard of induced false memory?" Apparently, under extreme stress or emotional trauma, the brain can invent memories to fill gaps. People can hallucinate entire relationships. She suggested I may have experienced something called a delusional disorder with romantic fantasy components. But that didn't sit right with me, because I didn't just imagine Daniel. I had texts. I had emails. I had photos. Ones that vanished. Yes, but I had seen them. I knew I had. I went to my phone carrier to pull up our message history. I gave them the number Daniel used. They pulled up the record. The number had never existed. Even my call logs from months of contact were blank. It was as if the data had been scrubbed. I was unraveling. Then one night, I had a dream. I was in our old apartment, except it looked abandoned. Cobwebs in the corners, faded furniture, like no one had lived there in years. I stood in the doorway, calling Daniel's name, when I saw him standing in front of a mirror, staring at himself. "Daniel?" I asked. He turned, but his face was blurred, like a smeared painting. "I told you not to look for me." I woke up drenched in sweat. The next day, I did something I hadn't done since this began. I went to the storage unit where we'd kept some of Daniel's things when we moved in together. I hadn't opened it since the wedding. Inside, the boxes were untouched. I opened one. It was full of blank notebooks. Another had a collection of random items, keys that opened nothing, pens that didn't write, empty photo frames. The last box held a single object, a USB drive. When I plugged it in at home, there was only one folder. Inside was a single video file, timestamped a year before we met. I clicked play. The screen was dark at first, then it lit up with a grainy video. Daniel, sitting in a room I didn't recognize. He looked younger, thinner, paler. He stared directly into the camera. "If someone's watching this," he said, "then the program failed." I froze. I was part of a study, A memory test. They said they could create artificial personalities and insert them into people's lives. I didn't believe them, but I volunteered. He looked around nervously. I wasn't supposed to last this long. A few months maybe. Just long enough to test the emotional attachment theories. But then I met her, and I didn't want to go back. I stayed too long. And now they're trying to erase me. He looked directly into the lens. If you're watching this and you remember me, please don't forget. That means I was real, at least for a little while. The screen went black. I sat there for hours, shaking. This wasn't just a scam. This wasn't just a delusion. Something had made Daniel, placed him into my life. And now it was trying to erase him. But why? And how many others had people like me loved ghosts that were never meant to stay? After watching the video, I couldn't sleep. Couldn't think straight. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Daniel's voice. Please, don't forget. I didn't know who they were, the ones who created him, the ones who erased him. But I needed answers. So I went back to the beginning. I searched the name of the file in the USB's metadata. It contained a string of numbers and the words, Project Mnemosyne. Mnemosyne, the Greek goddess of memory. I dove deep. Forums, encrypted web archives, defunct research blogs. Most of what I found felt like conspiracy theories. But one post on an abandoned neuroscience message board caught my eye. It was written 7 years ago. A user named G2 Spectre described a classified government-funded study into synthetic consciousness. Personality constructs uploaded into the subconscious of test subjects through subliminal triggers, emotional conditioning, and behavioral reinforcement. The goal? To study how the human brain forms emotional memory bonds, even with people who never truly existed. One line stuck out. If you've ever loved someone so deeply it hurts, but no one else remembers them, and you can't prove they were ever real, you might have been part of it. I stared at that sentence for what felt like an hour. I wasn't losing my mind. I was one of the test subjects. And Daniel, he was the control. Someone, somewhere, had inserted him into my life, watched us fall in love, and then pulled the plug the moment he became too real. But Daniel wasn't just a hallucination. He broke the rules. He left breadcrumbs, a video, a memory, a feeling. I thought about reporting it, going to the press, exposing the whole thing. But how? No paper trail, no evidence anyone else would accept. I'd look like someone desperate, delusional, grieving. A man who never existed. Eventually, I went back to work. I stopped telling people what happened. I let them believe the version that made them comfortable. That my husband left me on our honeymoon. That it was tragic. But I was moving on. Except I wasn't. How do you move on from something no one believes ever happened? Every now and then, I get these flashes. A scent in the air. A hand brushing mine. A whisper in a dream. Sometimes I swear I still feel him beside me. And once, just once, I saw a man at a train station. Back turned, same walk, same height, same little habit of running a hand through his hair when he was nervous. I called out, "Daniel!" He stopped. But when he turned, it wasn't him. At least, not exactly. Just before he disappeared into the crowd, he mouthed something I'll never forget. "Thank you." That's when I knew. Maybe he really wasn't meant to stay. Maybe he was never supposed to exist at all. But I loved him, and that was real.